Hi, this is Ohio nursing home abuse lawyer Will Eadie, and I'm here to answer a question I got from a great group in Ohio that's just started up recently, Elderly Advocates. And one of the members of the group asked, should I take pictures even when I've been asked not to? Now, in her case, she was concerned about the care a loved one was receiving in a nursing home. She reached out to the Ombudsman's office, and someone there said, maybe stop taking photos. And wouldn't you rather have a doctor looking at this instead of taking photos, which strikes me as problematic for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not an either or, you can do both. And number two, it's really important, or it can be very important, to have photographic or video evidence if there is bad care, even if there isn't. So here's my response. Number one, absolutely. Absolutely take photographs, take video. You really can't take too many. Now, there are some things you shouldn't take photographs or video of, and I'll address that in a second. But as a general matter, absolutely. Now, here are a few qualifications on that. Number one, make sure you're the sponsor or responsible party for your loved one. Power of attorney helps, even a guardianship if there's dementia issue. Be the person who has the right to do that, so that if the nursing home or assisted living facility tries to stop you, you have the authority to say, no, I'm going to do this. Number two, if your loved one is able to consent, if they're cognitively able to understand what you're asking, is it okay if I take photographs? Is it okay if I take video? Make sure that you ask them and get that consent. And one great way to do this is to ask them, and if they say yes, put it on video. So you can start a video and say, it's such and such date and time. I'm here in this, such and such facility at such and such address, and I'm here with my mom or dad or aunt or uncle or sibling. And I want to ask you, is it okay if now and moving forward that I'm allowed to take photographs or video of the care you receive, including, if you have injuries, things like that, that I take photographs and video of that and have them on video, agreeing that that's okay. That's a great thing to have if there's ever a question about whether you had consent or the right to do that. So let's talk for a second about the kinds of things you might want to take pictures of. Number one, for any nursing home abuse lawyer, is going to be wounds. If there's any kind of skin breakdown, even if you're told that the wound nurse or somebody or the hospital took photos, take photographs. Take photographs of the wound. Take multiple photographs over time. Get close. And why do I say that? Well, one of the hardest things to communicate to people is how devastating and grotesque a skin breakdown can be. And it's not always accurately reflected in the documentation, where it can be very clinical. It can be this many centimeters by this many centimeters by this deep. They can also incorrectly chart. And I've seen this plenty of times where there's really not very well qualified staff being tasked with documenting wounds. Now, it's not their fault. The nursing home shouldn't have them do it, but they do. They're called a wound nurse or a treatment nurse, even though they have no specialized training. I mean, I've literally sat across the table from these folks and said, do you have any special training or ability to do this? No. Do you wish you did? Yes. So don't assume the person is qualified to properly document or is choosing to do so accurately. Now, I always say this, we're not enemies of nurses, we're friends of nurses. We think being a nurse in a nursing home or an aide in a nursing home is very hard work. And most of them I've ever met really wanted to do a good job, but they're not always able to because of how the organization runs the facility. So you having photographic evidence over time of things like, what color is the wound? Is there any pus or ooze? Does it have hallmarks of infection or not? Things you might not know just looking at it yourself. And unfortunately, if they don't train people well, the nursing home staff may not know either. But now you'll have that evidence if the wound does worsen, leads to someone's decline or death, to be able, so we can show that to wound physicians and experts who can comment on it in a way that they may not be able to if they're just relying on the records. Another one, a great one, is therapy. I think going to therapy with a loved one periodically, taking video of how they're doing, over time, particularly if there's been an injury, something like that, I think that can be really helpful to understand their condition. We love therapists. One of the best things about therapy is you can't really understaff therapy because it's one-on-one. So much of the problems we see in nursing homes is about understaffing decisions from the corporate level, where nurses have to care for 20, 25, 30 residents, which is just impossible. So therapy can be a great thing to see. Another reason to do this, by the way, guys, is even things that seem innocuous, like, oh, there's nurses coming in, they're charting. We see this thing called window charting, where they just come in and chart, once a quarter because they're going to expect to get inspected at some point, or it's for this minimum data set MDS process. And so nurses will be caring for somebody every day, for months on end without documenting anything in their medical records or anything of any significance. And so there's really a lack of ability to get a snapshot of how someone's doing. So photographs and videos are a nice thing to have just to get an understanding of how someone was doing. And it's also nice, to take some photographs with your loved one, so just for the sake of doing that. Here are some things I would suggest you avoid taking photographs or videos of. Number one, when you don't have someone's consent, okay? Obviously, that's not appropriate. I would say don't take photographs or videos of other residents. I mean, if it's, hey, selfies with George, who's a really great guy and really likes your visits, even though he's the roommate or the neighbor, that's one thing. But in terms of documenting someone else's care, if they're not your loved one, if you're not the responsible party, the power of attorney, the sponsor of that person, I would suggest not doing that unless they are really lucid. I mean, I don't even want to say when you should, but I would be cautious about that. Number two is staff members. And this might strike people, it might be unexpected to hear a nursing home abuse lawyer saying, don't take photographs and videos of staff, at least not when they're not giving direct hands-on care to your loved one, okay? It's not their home, it's your loved one's home. It's just their workplace. And to the extent they're providing direct care, taking photographs or video of that direct care should be fine. But beyond that, don't walk up and be taking pictures and making people uncomfortable. I would suggest keeping track of names, and it helps to put a little description with that and title, because later when we're looking back, that's not always clear, particularly for nursing aides, or sometimes they're called STNAs if they're accredited or licensed by the state. But we don't always get good records on that from nursing facilities. So it can really help to track people down to get first, even last names. And especially at the worst nursing homes, there's the most turnover of staff. So there's often a lot of people we can track down if we know who they are. And that's an important thing to keep track of. Also, I would not suggest that you take pictures out in the main facility area where there's going to be a lot of residents, things like that going on. Just be conscientious that it's their home too. And you wouldn't want someone going around your home taking photographs of you while you're eating. So if you want to take some photos or videos of your loved one eating in a dining room setting, try to get an angle, higher up, or turn in a way that you're not capturing a bunch of other people in the facility, because you want to be respectful of the experience they're having as well. So there you have it. My overall advice, absolutely take photographs and videos if you have concern about poor care. And I'll say for the facility, I think this can help if there's not poor care. Because what they document, what they're concerned about, an expert may look at and say, that really isn't signs or symptoms of infection there, or that is healing, or that is accurate charting they're doing. So, it can run both ways. And I think it always helps to have more information rather than less. This is Ohio nursing home abuse lawyer Will Eadie, wishing everyone to stay happy and healthy in a nursing home. Thanks so much.